How's it going, folks? Welcome to OverTalk. My name is Chris Kid Liquid Okamura. We have the usual suspects today. We have Joshua Piscatorli, Caleb Cable Finn, Chris Bizzle, and of course Dylan Pepidus Hornenbrook. How's it going, fellas?
So good.
So we've had Overwatch for a little over a week now. Finally, all out.
Oh, wait. Speak for yourself. I've had it for all of like 3 days. Freaking GameStop never delivered my
Thank
copy.
you, GameStop.
Well, I mean, you did go ahead and buy an extra copy, right?
I did, yes.
So you've had it. You've had it. So yeah, guys, how is anyone Overwatched out yet, or are we still just playing it like crazy still?
I've
Chris.
already been playing before the show.
No.
How could one ever get Overwatched out?
I
No,
don't know.
we've all got to practice before competitive comes up later this month.
That's what I'm saying, yo.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is what kind of spurred the argument. What were you gonna say, Josh?
I was gonna say, let me tell you what I did yesterday.
Oh god.
I drove home, I made dinner, I sat down to play Overwatch. End of story. I played for as soon as I got home from work after I ate and stuff, it was just like Overwatch all the way until bed. I have a problem, but it's just something I embrace.
I mean, he has multiple problems, but this one is not one of them.
This one is a must.
I mean, I played all during Memorial Day. Like, that was my Memorial Day. So
I have a sickness, and the only cure
It's
is
more
more
Overwatch.
Overwatch.
So guys, we got the news that competitive is going to be delayed. Part of me thinks that this
Till
is June
June.
to the end of June. So I mean, it's only going to be a couple of weeks from what we thought it was going to be. So that's not too bad. So part of me kind of thinks this is sort of a response to the community feedback of the first couple of tournaments, especially Agents Rising. We got a lot of feedback out of there. And Josh and I competed in Agents Rising.
How was that?
It was great. Esports Arena was a great venue.
We had a lot
now
of fun.
nationally ranked.
We are nationally ranked now,
Yeah.
yeah. Our team is now 94th in the country, according to Gosu Gamers.
Ooh, top 100.
Yeah, so we're great.
Get them
Through one
sponsors
event,
going,
we are
yo.
the top. We are 94 team in the country. But yeah, I mean the one thing that I do want to say is the tournament was strange just because they had no hero limits, and I don't think I've ever seen a tournament of that kind of magnitude on Overwatch yet not run hero limits. So I mean, I wanted to devote this kind of whole episode to hero limits. And Josh, you want to go ahead and kind of explain what's going on?
All right, so throughout the course of Overwatch in both the closed beta and the open beta, we've seen a number of tournaments run. Some of them ran with hero limits, meaning you can only run one of each hero on a team. Some of them haven't, like Agents Rising, where you can run as many heroes as you want on a singular team. So the reason that a lot of people are arguing and saying that we should have hero limits is because there's always inherently going to be something that's overpowered or just optimal to play in any sort of game. And when you allow a team to run 5 or 6 of them, all of a sudden gameplay becomes really, really stale and hard to kind of balance around. And in Agents Rising, I think we saw a lot of instances where that theory was kind of proven, where we saw a lot of cheese comps come out. Liquid ran like a 5 Tracer, 1 Lucio comp at one point against Cloud9. It was pretty ridiculous.
Did they do it against Cloud9 too? Because I saw they did it on a Stomp game.
Yeah, they did it against Cloud9.
Well, and how did it fare? I didn't get to see that one.
I think they won that game.
I don't remember, but the fact that it happened is enough for me.
Yeah, the point of it is just like, why is this a thing? I don't think there's any justification right now for why there's hero limit, or like why hero limit isn't just a standard practice for tournaments.
I mean, people like to say, whenever you put a requirement in or when you put like this essential gauge on things, that you're hampering creativity, that, you're underpinning some level of strategy that could be included into this game. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I think being forced to use, all the different variables rather than just, loading up on whatever is strong. Like, to me, whenever you use multiple of a hero, so like, say, the double Winston comp, to me, it's kind of like brute forcing strategy rather than saying, we're going to pair this Winston with a Zarya because this is an ideal combo for, say, ulti purposes, or he or she helps his dive. Rather, this is just like, oh, okay, 1 Winston's really good. 2 Winstons is absolutely good. And that's like the strategy. So what it's interesting. Like I've heard both sides of the debate, and they're saying, you know what, you're hampering our ability to build strategies that are, you know, the most optimal. Whereas the other side's like, yeah, but you know, it's no one likes to see double Winston. Like you want to see a wider diversity of heroes because it's more entertaining. There are more, you know, variables on the field. There are a bunch of different things happening. So it could go either way.
I will say for competitive, whenever you're talking about people, whenever you have casting, I think it is a lot easier as a viewer to say that the Winston is doing X instead of Winston 1 is doing X, Winston 2 is doing X. And I'm not sure if you, because you've casted a bit, Josh, like, do you like, is it easier for you to like just say the character name rather than the like player name? And do you think it's easier as a, I mean, I would say it's pretty obvious it's easier as a viewer.
For once in the entire run of this show, I will agree 100% with Bizzle and say that in terms of casting, it's hard enough keeping track of one tracer on each team because, I mean, girl just moves so fast, you know? Throw 10 or 11 or 12 in a game? Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Like, how could you possibly draw narrative or draw focus or highlight players out of that? It just becomes such a massive mess. It's like trying to decode spaghetti in the middle of a broadcast, and that's not exactly what you want to do. Like, for the sake of the broadcast,
get good at casting, man. Come on, get good.
Clearly, I'm just bad. I can't keep track of 12 traits. If somebody can cast that, like, more power to them. But for right now, as a viewer, if I see 5 tracers out, like, damn, like, all the players just kind of mush into one big giant tracer puddle, and that's not exactly the way people connect to players and teams.
Well,
So
about connecting to players and teams, one of the duties of a caster is to make sure that you're actually getting the players' names right. Because the players' names are their brand. And essentially, if you're covering their tournament, you're covering their branded content. You want to make sure that you're giving them credit for what they're doing. If you have 5 tracers, it's almost impossible to call the correct tracer by the correct name. If they're all on different heroes, and I'm drawing this from League of Legends, I would say it's a lot easier to see Poppy and think, okay, this guy's playing Poppy, therefore see Poppy X player name. Whereas even in this game, because we allow duplicates of the same hero on opposing teams, it can be hard. Like you see Pharah ulti, you have that quick of a second to get a player name out. And sometimes you'll say the Pharah on the opposite teams if there are 2 Pharahs. So it's very hard because the lightning quick action forces you to quick name recall. And if you can't directly relate name to a certain character model, which is the first thing you're going to grasp, it gets a lot harder to get correct player names out.
Yeah. So I think you guys all know that I stand on the opposite side of the fence. I pretty much always have. I really like the idea of having multiple heroes within even a competitive match. I think, using Dylan's concession statements, those are my arguments, I guess, is that you allow for more creativity, you allow for more fun in the game, you allow for different interesting comps, and you allow for crazy plays, right? Like, think about, let's say that, flash forward 2 years from now, and ESPN on SportsCenter is showing a highlight of this incredible Cloud9 versus Team Liquid game, and it was a 4-tracer Lucio versus a 4 Winston Zarya, right? And and people are just gonna go like, wow, that's the craziest composition, because it's, if it's balanced right, if the game is managed properly on the developer side, those should be rare comps. It should be set up in a fashion that those are not so overpowered. I do believe that's going to take tweaking on the developer side. It's going to take tweaking for the game statistics, but I don't know. I think that it provides a lot of uniqueness, a lot of fun, and a lot of excitement. Now, that said, the one standpoint that I see your guys' position from is the spectator and the caster. It is extraordinarily difficult to track, like you guys are saying. I think the solution would possibly come in, let's say that you completely go over to where, completely open hero limits, that you would have to require that everyone has a different skin. And that could only come in the case that skins are fully unlocked for public competitive matches, right? So like just like Riot does for League of Legends. But I mean, it's difficult to coordinate before the game because you can't pick a skin while you're in the game, right? You can't.
Yeah.
You have to preload or pre-attach your skin to each character. So I mean, I understand that. I don't think that the solution is one hero per game. Didn't your collegiate league, Josh, do 2?
Well, it's 1 per team.
1 per team.
Yeah, that's right, 1 per team. So it only did 1 per team, not 2 per team?
Yeah, and both the collegiate one I casted, in addition to motorcycle, in addition to
The Razor one.
the DreamHack tournaments. Yeah.
I would prefer, if we're going to create a middle ground balance compromise, I would prefer that you go 2. Seeing 2 tracers should not be that difficult for a caster. It'll be a little more challenging, but once I think there's an acclimation that needs to happen, right? Like people, the casters, the viewers, everybody has to kind of get used to what they're watching a little bit here. And if they get used to a bunch of heroes, then it will become not as complicated to them. That said, we want to make it easier on new viewers so that we gain as many new viewers as possible. But I think if the casters can take that next step and be able to distinguish between just say 2 of the same hero on the same team, I think that could make for plenty of creativity combinations.
Well, I mean, I keep hearing people bring up the idea of 2 heroes. Even that to me is a problem because the problem we're seeing, Winston by himself is a strong hero, but not like an overwhelming problem. You get 2 Winstons, that's almost impossible to deal with on a control point. And like the comps that we were seeing during the beta that were really strong, at least with tournaments with no hero limits, were 2 Winstons, 2 Lucio, or 2 Tracer/Reaper. Like it's like those are extremely difficult comps to deal with. Just the amount of healing and speed that Lucio brings, combined with the Winstons, like it's ridiculous.
And I'll step back to go, Josh.
I was gonna say it's like this hero stacking has more of a synergistic effect. I think like in the medical world, like if you combine like certain 2 drugs, like narcotics and like alcohol, they kind of like form into this superpower drug that has like a much more pronounced effect on you. And I think that's kind of what you get when you have like something like 2 Winstons on a team, because like Chris said, 1 Winston is really good. 2 Winston becomes like way better, like exponentially than just 1 Winston, because
it's not like it's 1 Winston. It's not like Winston's worth 20 and so like 2 Winstons is 40. No, it's like 2 Winstons is worth like 120.
100,
it's ridiculous.
So I think I'll step back to StarCraft and even my League of Legends philosophy on balancing. I think that we're not at a position yet to really say that 2 Winstons is overpowered. We're only like a week, a little more.
But I mean, we saw it in the beta
launch
too, though. Like the beta had a problem too.
But even this first, I watched the Alienware, the Melee, whatever monthly Melee or whatever they call it. And then I watched a lot of the Agents Rising, and the meta is still shifting significantly. I mean, in beta, very few competitive teams ever use Bastion, and in both of those tournaments, I saw Bastion being used somewhat decently by the top level teams. What's it called? Cloud9 is changing up their strategies or coming up with unique strategies for every tournament that they do. Team Liquid's trying to run scrims on unique, weird strategies too. So I think we're going to see we're going to see people figure out how to deal with 2 Winstons, and then in a month from now, we're going to laugh and we're going to say, can you remember when 2 Winstons was overpowered? Now you just do this, whatever, and it's so easy. I think that's still going to keep developing.
So, Cable, I think the one thing that... I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying in terms of like whether it's StarCraft or League of Legends or even Dota. But like the thing is, in this scenario, it's hard enough to balance taking into account 1 hero per team, right? Like if you could only use one of the 21 heroes per team, that's hard to balance already because you have 21 factors involved. It's almost impossible to balance those heroes when considering you could have multiples of them.
But isn't Blizzard already taking that into account because they have to? But
I mean, like, think about how hard that is, and that's why you're going to end up with weird stuff like, maybe Winston, 2 Winstons is really strong, right? So they might nerf Winston, but then how does that affect
Chris,
Winston by himself? What's up?
Chris, I got you. I've actually got a quote. Surefor was asked about hero stacking, and he actually brought up the 2 Winston example exactly. So he said, I doubt Winston would have ever gotten a shield nerf if it weren't for 2 Winston comps. And in the end, you just nerf a single Winston too much. So multiple heroes not only make the game harder to balance, it makes single heroes worse after nerfs. And characters are starting to be balanced around themselves, having an orb instead of the character themselves. So if there isn't a 1 hero limit, there is always going to be one comp that is better than the others, and it's going to be harder to balance around.
Exactly. That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Who's this Surefor you're talking about?
Surefor is the captain. Okay.
Yeah, I know who he is.
For those that don't watch the pro scene out there, Surefor is one of the players from C9.
Yeah.
Is he the captain? I think he's the captain.
He's the captain, yes.
Yeah.
But
and
yeah,
C9
I
is currently
completely
the number 1
agree.
ranked team in competitive Overwatch. So
I mean, and,
credentials.
like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Where at what point are you hurting like single heroes? Like what if they nerf double Winston? What's the viability of single Winston? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it goes down. It just does. And I mean, it was the same thing for Zarya. They nerfed her E, which used to last 6 seconds instead of 3 seconds, because people were stacking Zaryas. And they were like, oh, wow, getting all these 6-second bubbles was really troublesome when you can also back it up with a 3-second bubble in enough time to get the 6-second bubble out on your other opponent. So it was just like this infinite bubbled Zarya. And it weakened her considerably as far as being a singular Zarya, even though I still think she's at a decent point right now. But you can see how it dramatically affects the single hero when you have to take into effect that multiple heroes can be on a team. Same thing with I think they might have touched Mei a little bit about her freezing speed, just because of the threat of double Maze. And also
May needs a nerf real bad, by the way.
Agreed.
No, she
100%.
doesn't. Not before.
I just think her right click needs
first.
a
Then
little
we'll
bit
talk
of a nerf.
about Mei.
I think her right click needs a little bit of a nerf. Her snipe, I think the distance fall off should be better. But that's my own.
Yeah. It could. The fact that it's linear, I'll agree with you. That's a travesty, considering some other characters that would be a projectile like Torbjorn's left click. So if it worked more like Torbjorn's, I'd be happy with it.
So Cable, what do you think of everything we're bringing up right now with the single hero thing? I'm curious.
No, I think they're valid points. I think that and to extrapolate the game, let's say in 2 years, and they're going to release more heroes. Every hero you add adds you get exponentially larger numbers of combinations, especially if you allow multiple of that same hero. So let's say the next hero comes out and he's really strong in XYZ, but then you throw 4 of them together and 2 of whatever else, or 1 support, 1 tank, and it's just super overpowered. Like, that may happen every iteration, and it is something that they will have to consider. That said, we're in 2016 here, and Blizzard has some money, and statisticians and computer programmers can figure out pretty large numbers these days, and pretty big probabilities. So to say that this is impossible to do, I think, is a little overstating on the wrong end. But to say that maybe infinite, like you can have 6 of the same hero, maybe that's a little much. You're right. I feel like there's got to be some way to make it happen in a series. So let's say you have a series of best of 3 or best of 5, and then let's say you have a pool that you can pick this same hero. Let's say it's a best of 3, right? Then your team can pick the same hero X total times, and once you've picked it all those times out of a series, then
That's
you can't
really
pick it
interesting.
anymore.
I actually never
Right?
even considered that. That's actually really kind of cool.
I don't know. I feel like if we start getting creative with our rule sets, as opposed to just the quick fix of imposing strict hero limits, I think that we'll get more dynamic play, more uniqueness. And that's the thing. Even our rule sets are not very well developed. Esports Arena was, I know from knowing some of the guys who were putting the tournaments together there, they were trying to figure out the rule sets up until the day of the tournament. They didn't know exactly what was going on.
Personally, I think the best rule set, so we talked about this, me and Josh talked about this today on our show, on our other show, but
Inside Esports on Go 90.
go check it out. But
Verizon.
we were talking about it, and it's strange. We were saying that the two kind of things that people are leaning towards for Overwatch, at least it started with stopwatch. People thought that stopwatch was like sort of the only way to run that, and then now it's leaning more towards a point system, and then even two ways of point system. Of there's the one that Agents Rising ran, where it's just a straight round win. And then there's the one that the DreamHack tournament ran, the Razor ones that were kind of you get points for every checkpoint you hit. So you could get up to about what was it, like 3 or 5 points a game,
Like
because of the way that
6.
works. Yeah. So it kind of made it so, like in Agents Rising, we pushed the payload all the way, or in Hollywood, we pushed all the payload all the way down to pretty much like, what was it, Josh? Like point.
That's like 5 meters.
Like 5 meters away, and we lost, and we didn't get any kind of points for that. Like that was just like a round loss. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like we should at least get something for that, rather than just like a straight round loss.
Mhm.
So I mean, Josh, what do you think for point systems?
I totally agree. The fact that points should be given incrementally throughout the course of a map and series, because otherwise you get kind of these super skewed binary results of, oh, you made it all the way this far, you fought for 14 minutes, went into 17 times overtime, but you didn't actually get it to the end, therefore you get nothing. Like, I think that's really disappointing to both the teams and the viewers watching. It's like, but they fought so hard, they got it to like 0.1 meter. Doesn't that count for anything? And I think it kind of cheats everybody of.
I don't know, man.
The
You get
sense
to
of
the 1 yard
accomplishment.
line, you don't get a touchdown, you don't get anything.
You can kick a field goal.
Yeah, you can kick a field goal. Okay. The one thing I will say on that is, like, to me, as someone who did not get to watch that tournament, right, because I was working,
Excuses?
looking
Okay.
back at the what
Excuses, he
Go,
said.
I'm sorry.
looking back at the result afterwards felt so bad, right? So like, oh, this team won 4-0. Wow, they must have been so much better than this other team, right? And it's just like, it brings to your point, like, what you're talking about with like how this looks to viewers, but it also brings that to people who were also like who are also just looking at pure results.
Yeah, it's hard to track like which team was better, unless you're like visually watching them. It's hard to statistically determine which team was better, or like where the like power rankings for the teams when you don't have a set thing of how many check points are they hitting on payload maps, like how much time do they have in the control point, like stuff like that. You know what I mean?
And that'll only come with more advanced tournaments that are run and more advanced
Sure.
production crews. You know, they have that kind of stuff for Counter-Strike. These guys have databases of all the past 6 months worth of Counter-Strike matches, and you know what player, when this player goes up against this player, what his kill death ratio. You know, like they have all these statistics that they can just pull they have a database, and they have I forget what the word is, but they have a interface where they can pull any data from this. They have drop-down menus, this guy versus this guy,
Yeah.
this team versus this team, right? And they have
Sure.
all the stats populate. Boom. That's going to happen with Overwatch, and we'll be able to get more of that stuff. I think that you know, the different rule sets, the different point sets will be interesting and important to move forward with. Again, we need to keep it simple for the viewers. But that said, you know, if you've never watched, you know, American football before, have fun with somebody trying to teach you the rules. The
That's
rules are
impossible.
right. Like, it's like, whoa. And it's the most popular sport in North America. So, you know, complicated rule sets can come, but they need to come progressively.
Dude, trying to watch the Super Bowl with my girlfriend was like the most frustrating thing ever. She's
Dude, I don't know much about football either, but at least there's still that. As long as you know that this team needs to run the ball to the other side, that's pretty much all you need to know, and you can kind of cheer along with your friends when
Yeah.
you're watching at Super
But I mean,
Bowl
like,
parties.
the-
But yeah,
That's a
But
good point.
Getting back to Overwatch and just the point set really quick, it does kind of like just setting up a situation. Say you hit. We'll go Hollywood again, right? So one team gets it like 0.5 meters away, loses, right? The other team goes up 1-0. Okay, game 2, the team stomps the other team. They go 1-1, tied, right? Obviously, the series isn't tied because they barely missed. You know, Team A barely missed map 1, and then they stomp map 2, and then maybe map 3. What if it's another close series, but team B wins, right? So now just match wise, they're up, or they win the series 2-1. Where if you took point system into account, they might like team A probably just win, like just based on points.
Right.
Dude,
I feel one of these tournaments that I've watched, and I'm sorry that if they're blending together, it's because I've seen so many of them at this point.
Sure.
I remember one that had what they called gold medal time. So essentially, there was a comparison at the end of every game in case of a tie. So if a map essentially ended 1-1 after both teams went on both sides, either the team that made the most progress or finished the map quicker ended up getting a point. The only time in which there was no gold medal time associated was if both defenses, like if it was a point A defense and both teams held point A for full duration.
Well, what if you gave points based on checkpoints and check?
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
that's what.
Yeah, so then even in a capture the point, you get like for every checkpoint of time, you get a point for each of those.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm
that's
saying
what your Razor one
I would go a
That's
step further than that. I would say not only do you get a point, but there's a comparison made at every checkpoint level as far as who did it faster. So
isn't that like stopwatch?
That's stopwatch.
That's stopwatch.
No, it is similar to stopwatch, but the fact is you continue play regardless.
Yeah.
So it's like point based stopwatch.
Yeah.
Well, the stopwatch doesn't determine the points, but the points serve as a tiebreaker in the case of like the points are more based on the checkpoints, but the time serves as a tiebreaker in the case of one.
Actually,
that's not what you're saying.
What if points were actually just the tiebreaker?
And it's just stopwatch with points as a tiebreaker?
No. I'm saying you do the Blizzard standard, the 1-0, except for the fact that you look at least the progression that they made, and that serves as tiebreaker. Or in case of both winning, you look at the time, and that essentially sets the tiebreaker.
Well, okay.
Because the problem with stopwatch was that it took the first points were crazy heavily more weighted than whatever preceded. You could be a great team at defending the midpoint of a map, and it could never matter on stopwatch.
Well, the one that that you and I, like you sent me, Dylan, there was a point system, but it was a point system for like how you finished. So if you finished the map within 8 minutes, you got like 3 points, and then there was that system as well, which I really liked as a viewer. Right? It wasn't necessarily stopwatch, right? But
it's based on time.
It's a variation of stopwatch. Huh. Josh, what do you think? You're rather quiet.
The thing is, there's a lot of variation that could go on here. Like we could sit here talking about this like forever. Like,
I'm
you
curious.
could do X, you could do a little of B. The thing is, like, I think we need to step away from a binary. It's either stopwatch or it's not stopwatch.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's clearly not going to be the case here. There's room for a lot of either imagination, testing, mixing of different things here or there that I think they can play with. And I think the key thing here is that we make the statement that nothing's set in stone yet. Mm-hmm. And we still have to wait for competitive to come out to figure out how Blizzard's looking to even just do online play.
Yeah.
Maybe they're listening to this podcast right now, and they're going to base competitive off of what we're saying.
100%. What I will say, Chris, is I do not like that system that you were talking about, where Team A would win with only one win if they stomped that one win, right?
Well, stomped that one win, and then also came was pretty much at the point. You understand what I mean, right?
Yeah,
like
I get no, I 100% get it. But looking at it like from like StarCraft, right? If Hyun, right, barely ekes out a win versus Sue, right?
Sure. I mean, I think it's just rewarding consistency more than like the finish, right? Like that's all I'm talking about. I'd rather see the consistently better team win. Like
can you say that team's consistently better?
Yeah, because I mean, like my thing is throughout an entire map, like if it's a payload map. There's certain choke points in a map that are easier to defend than others, right? But I mean, like if you can stably play, like it forces teams to stably play through and learn different points of a map, rather than like on Hanamura giving up A right away and then just defending the fuck out of B, right? You know what I mean? Like that tends to be
right.
Like I've done that before, where you're like, oh, well, we'll just give up A and we'll set up all our bastions at B, and we'll just defend Hanamura B because there's just no way to break that. Like, you know,
Yeah, that needs
like,
to be a strategic decision instead of a given.
yeah, like you don't, you know, like it needs to be a thing like where you can just give that up without. Okay, we're gonna sacrifice 3 points, but they're only gonna get those 3 points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what you're saying is that, like, in your system, that would be bad for them to do. It would
Yeah.
be.
Well, no,
It would
like it's fine. You can give them an automatic 3 points. You just have to be able to match the 3 points, and then understand that if they get 4, like, what I'm saying is that you're making a strategic move that you can hold B without having them get any points on B. So you're giving them an automatic 3 points, but you know for a fact you can stop them to, like, hold them to 3 points. So you just have to beat 3 points. Like, you know that in your head going in. You know what I mean?
I get that, but with the system like that I'm talking, or the system that isn't your system, like the binary system, that's way more rewarding for giving up point A. You can give up point A easily if you're like, oh, I 100% can take point B, right? Because let's say you try to do point A, like you give up point A and you try to do B and you barely miss it, right?
Yeah.
Then if you are then you have to definitely take both.
Yeah, you're forced to take both at that point. But I mean, like, I don't know, Josh. What do you think? We're finally getting to Josh. Josh, what do you think?
All right, I got a radical idea here, boys. Strap in.
Strap in,
So-
strap on.
I like it. I like it.
For payload, flat distance. That's going to take a little bit of rewriting on behalf of Blizzard's code in regards to how payload is calculated. But we already have a meter counter in payload itself. So I think for a win on a payload map, it should be just a flat point value, like 1 point for whoever wins the map. But the win should be calculated based on distance. So you're really kind of drawing from the best of both worlds. Like if a team managed to push it like 100 meters and the other team managed to push it 88, then the team who pushed it further won. Because you kind of measure each team's progress throughout the thing. The value assigned at the end is going to be binary, but at the same time, the way you get there isn't. And I think that's the most important thing. Plus, it's really easy for a viewer to understand. Whoever pushes it further wins the payload map.
Well,
And then you just get a point for that.
I don't understand that point because the end point of a payload map is the end. You will get it to, if the end point is at 100 meters, you're going to get it to 100 meters.
Okay.
Where does this 88 come into account?
Wait,
If you don't finish out.
If you don't finish out,
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoever
like, you
pushes
can-
it further.
so you can tie in a payload map.
So do you get 2 points if you finish the whole thing? But if you don't, then you get one. Then the person who gets the farthest gets 1 point, maybe like an absolute domination versus a.
Dude, you know what? Actually,
I think for faster finishes, you go to stopwatch. Like if both teams
holy
manage
crap,
to push
actually, hold on, time out, Josh.
Yeah.
What if? Okay, for payload maps, say it's however much, right? It's like 100 or something like that, right? What if then for control point maps, it's just flat percentage, but you get like it's like basketball or whatever. You get your point totals be extremely high. So like if you both finish the map, you just get 100 points. Like each meter is a point, and then for control maps, each percent is a point.
I don't.
But then you
know
have
how the
really high
balance would
point
work.
values.
Yeah, you just have
Because
really
then
high
control
point
point
values.
would be like way more valuable in comparison to payload if there are more points available.
Payload would be more valuable because payload is
Like
automatically further than 100 feet or 100 meters.
Well, either way, like I'm saying that the point values of each map would have to be equal.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I guess so.
I don't know how exactly it would play out, but it needs to be really simple for the viewer to understand, because I know something that Blizzard is really looking for is a rule set for each map that can kind of summarize itself within 3 bullet points, which is a big reason why they're kind of steering away from stopwatch so much, because there are so many situations where the rules get a little bit convoluted and hard to understand. Like even as a caster who casted this for 2 months, there were still situations in stopwatch where I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's over." No, it isn't. It's not actually over. I've been casting this for 2 months, but I still don't fucking get it sometimes. So I think that.
Why would it not? What are these rule sets that are wonky?
It's just the idea of sometimes you're used to certain maps cutting off at certain times. Other times you like forget the series scores and you kind of think, oh, it's mathematically over and stuff. It's kind of hard to keep track of in your mind as a first-time viewer, and I think that's something that I know that that's something Blizzard wants to get away from entirely. So something as simple as a flat point system attached to total distance covered in payload, or like Chris said, each percentage points gained on control points. If it's simpler for them to just get rid of the percentage symbol in control point and just go to a flat point value, because that's essentially what it is, I think that might be better for the viewership experience. It gets a little bit more confusing when you get to capture points or hybrid maps, where I think we can maybe retweak the visuals regarding the actual ticks itself. Instead of seeing like point A with the circle around it, 1, 2, 3 ticks, I think like effectively this changes nothing, but visually it changes a lot. You just change it to 3 circles instead that fill up one at a time. It's like ding, 1 point, ding, 2 points, ding, 3 points, and then you get 3 points for the thing. It's so much easier to visualize, but effectively it's the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like there should still be some kind of like absolute domination kind of point plus, that if you fully capture the point, or if you fully get the payload all the way forward, you get bonus points, right? Like, so instead of just like 100 points, right, you get, let's just use 100 as our value, as the maximum value, that if instead of just 100 you get 150 or 200, right, for completing the map. But then if you don't, then you only get from 0 to 100 for that map. I mean, like, I think that have a high of a point values gets a little weird, though. Are you going to get into thousands of point values for any individual map? I mean, that seems, or any individual match. I think if you did like 1 point per 10 meters, or like
sure. I mean, like it was just more of an idea. It was a concept more than anything else.
It's a good idea. Like, it's a very good idea.
My thing too is like I actually like the idea of bonus points too, just because it goes back to the thing of Bizzle was saying, where if one team gets really close to finishing and the other one does finish, the point total should be more than 1, right? Just because they did succeed in the objective.
This is true. I agree.
So like that bonus point would kind of give that lead a little bit, give it a little more weight.
And if you sum all the points from all the games, then you should have a leader by the end, right? It's much more difficult to have a tie when you have these cumulative points that are accumulating over the course of a match.
Yeah,
but you can still have some kind of tie system set up to where you have tiebreakers. The tiebreakers can be complicated. I don't have a problem with tiebreakers being complicated, but the basic rules of the map should be very, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Do we know how is Blizzard going to go ahead and rotate these 3 game modes for competitive? Do you think?
Like the way they're rotations?
Like the way they did in beta?
Yeah, like the way the competitive worked. Like, are they going to do that? Where it's just these maps in rotation?
Yeah, I think so. I don't see why not. You just have a random, like 2 random generators, right? You have one that spins for the type, and the second that spins for the map. I think it's easy enough.
I would love to see a drafting system implemented into competitive play, like we see in CS:GO, Call of Duty, any games with a map. Really, you kind of go through that drafting phase. And I think that's really important.
It actually worked really well for Esports Arena. Esports Arena ran draft there, and like Josh, you want to explain the whole thought process behind our pick bans from like game 1, the adjustments we made, because it actually was really interesting.
All right, so the quick breakdown of map drafting: you go through, you take turns banning 1 map at a time, and the last 3 maps that you're left with are going to be the maps that you play. So the first series that we played, we got completely bodied. We drafted originally to get control point maps in there with maybe 1 hybrid in there, but we wanted to play control point, so we banned maps around that. We got on it, realized that our team didn't necessarily play control point very well.
We ran into double Winston.
It's like we don't respond to that very well. We don't have a hero pool that really counters that, so from then on, we realized we need to draft and try and pick up hybrid or payload maps. So we then changed our drafting strategy completely. What we did was we pretty much forced the other team to ban out the maps that nobody ever plays, like Hanamura, Anubis, Volskaya. Like, those are maps that no team ever wants to actually play. So now
even though Dylan loves Volskaya.
I still
like,
love Volskaya.
It's
It
a
is
terrible
the
map.
I have the most fun in.
Nobody wants to play it, and I realized that as soon as they first banned Hanamura, I'm like, all right, they don't want to play capture points. I'm just going to ban out all the control point maps first, because they're now going to be forced to ban out all the capture points because they've already shown a dislike for them. So we were able to draft in a way that got us almost all payload and hybrid maps, and that went a lot better for us because it just fit our hero pool and our play style a lot more. Like the second series we played with that drafting phase in mind, we managed to roll through a team on Hollywood. We took the first point in under a minute, and we took the next. We took the entire map in like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, I think
which was like
we just
absurd.
bodied. It was ridiculous.
We just destroyed them, and drafting is such an important part of these map-based shooter games. And I would hate for Blizzard to kind of force map rotations, because there are certain maps that the competitive community is going to naturally drift towards, and some map people are just not big fans of. Like, I think Hanamura and Anubis are two really big examples of that, where people are just
They're auto bans.
They hate playing it in pugs because you need so much coordination in order to succeed on attack on any of those maps. So
Well,
they need to keep the map draft, I think.
I think I'm not bothered by the fact that like Hanamura or Anubis require a ton of coordination from the offense. It's the fact that it requires little to no coordination from the defense as well.
Mm.
Like the level of coordination you need to defend Hanamura B or Anubis B is like ridiculously low.
Well, StarCraft had a good map veto system where, you know, basically there's a pool of whatever 8 maps that are on the competitive ladder pool, and then you can check the ones that you don't want to play. And you pretty much never get them. There's a rare chance that you could, but it's basically you never get them. I think that could be an easy system where you personally veto the maps that you don't want, and then it runs an algorithm based on everybody's vetoes, and picks a map accordingly.
Well, I mean, like, how does that work in competitive though? Like, or in like a tournament format? Like,
no, it wouldn't work in a tournament format. It'd only be for solo queue competitive. So in a tournament format, it would be each team drafts.
Yeah,
has a rotational draft.
But I mean, like,
they do that in StarCraft too, though.
At that point, like, doesn't it just become like a Kassadin Zed situation where like, who's gonna ban the Kassadin? Who's gonna ban? Who's it's like Kassadin's automatic ban, right? So like, who's gonna ban Hanamura? Like, you're forcing guys to ban either side there, and it's like, okay.
Well, that's a
situation.
Symptom of the map design, and
sure.
As much as I would hate to be the guy who designed these maps and people are saying they hate them, that would just like eat my pride completely. At the same time, hey, you got to suck it up, and if you need to fix your map, then fix your map so that it doesn't become a problem. I think that's more a problem with the maps than it is about the system.
Have we talked about Hanamura B and Anubis in a while? Like, because
Anubis has gotten a lot better.
Anubis is a lot better.
Opened it up.
Yeah, since they added that extra row, which makes me think that they're probably going to add at least one more entrance to Hanamura. Because the thing that, for me, that makes Hanamura so much more difficult than it is for, like, say, Volskaya or for Anubis is the fact that the actual point field is on a different height than the terrain around it. So that back staircase in Hanamura, I think, is actually one of the biggest culprits as to why it's so hard to take. Because a lot of the things that we use to win points, things like Zarya ulti, things like Diva ulti, become less effective when there's so much space around it for people to play on. Like Anubis, it's a lot harder to avoid a Zarya ulti because you're forced to play on point so often. Volskaya, you play on the point. Hanamura, you have teams that play off the point in like 5 different directions.
Yeah.
It's very hard to coordinate a win because the enemy team can be so spread out that it's almost impossible to take out all the different angles.
What if I could see either dropping the elevation of the step or inverting the elevation to where the step is inverted lower.
It could be.
It would mess with the aesthetics of the whole, like, what they're trying to achieve in the Japanese ambiance there.
Yeah, you're fighting in the dojo, but guess what? Fighting in the dojo just gets your ass kicked. I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
You barely see any. If you're defending, if someone's standing on that dojo center, you're stupid. Like, there's no reason for you to stand there.
That's the kill zone.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the point is the kill zone that you want to get past to get to the enemy team.
You don't think that the high cavity that's above, that's like way above, you
On
don't
the
think
right
that's
side?
the bigger culprit?
on the
So-
on that top side,
If you're looking at the back of the dojo from
On the
the
right
entrance
side, on the
and
right side.
up right,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't you think that high point is more of a culprit?
I don't
I see
think
people
so.
setting up their Torbjorn and Bastion turrets
I
up
don't,
out there all
I
the
don't
time.
think so. Just because there's an entrance around it, like there's a back way.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, my big issue is the fact that you can see this on both Anubis and on Volskaya. Their side routes, as far as where they are on the capture point, are quite a bit closer in as to where the enemy team enters. So that distance between the right side door on Hanamura and where I would set up a Bastion in the back is long enough that that's a mid-range Bastion's like sweet spot.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm setting up Bastion in a corner on, say, Anubis, that's close enough that I could probably get a Reinhardt charge in and not die. But on Hanamura, getting that Reinhardt charge in is instant death.
So what if then instead they have the patio, the
Move
patio entrance
forward?
from the side, move towards the back of the dojo to where you
I
enter
think that
at the
would be
same
grand.
line as the elevated plane.
I think that would be a great idea. I mean, just as far as a small thing, like a small change.
Yeah,
I think
because
that
then it
could
would
have
be a
a big
true
effect
flame.
on static defense.
What about lowering? What about lowering that high ground? Like not making it as big as a step, making the step jumpable or even walk overable.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
I mean, that would help with what Dylan was saying about like the Zarya ults
yeah,
and the
Zarya ult, the Diva
height
ults, like
differences.
you can float it over. You don't have to I don't have to shoot a Diva ult over the thing. It just kind of rolls over it, right?
I mean, also just that entire back area, it adds so much area for you not to be affected by AoE. I mean, AoE is what wins these points. It's Hanzo ultis, it's Earth Shatters, it's Graviton Surges, and it's Pharah ultis.
Yeah.
I think taking
Like,
out
those
that
are the things
taking
that
out that
move it.
center is going to be big too. Like if you could take out that center area where the dragon painting is, like just
Yeah,
that
that big
little
wall.
block, because it's a block. It's like a block that just covers that whole area back off, and it gives you more room to kind of hide behind. Josh, what do you think? You're quiet.
I just don't like the map at all. Like we can go
Like,
through
you-
and trying to fix the problems of all of these. I'm like,
Do you see an issue here? Like, or is it just the map? You just don't like the map at all?
I think the issue just comes down to not necessarily how the map is constructed, but more of the spawning system and considering how close things are. Like if you made the spawn a little bit further away,
That could also help. I agree.
fuck that. I just don't like capture points. I just think it's way too campy of a thing. Just standing on something for a set period of time and trying to stay alive for that set
that's what
period
control
period
is,
of
though,
time
to
and
be
kill.
fair.
But control kind of goes back and forth because
Sure.
you're forced on either side to
No, yeah.
take the same objective. But capture
I mean,
points,
the point of control point is the fact that you're supposed to be drawing in different sets of heroes.
Right.
Like, I can't rightly justify static defenders on payload. Like,
Unless you put them
It's-
on the payload.
yeah, unless you put
Yeah,
them
as
on
offense.
train, baby.
So if we take out control point, I think you pretty much lose Torbjorn as a hero entirely. Like, it's very hard to put him on payload because it's a moving situation. Like, unless you're so confident that you're going to hold like this corner and that this corner will never die, then sure, go ahead and play Torbjorn.
I think
But-
you got that wrong, Dylan. Turrets never die, or turrets die all the time. Heroes never die.
never
Yeah,
die.
yeah, heroes never
Lord.
die. Well, whatever. Point being, there's such diminishing return around Torbjorn if you know that you have to move and reset areas constantly.
Sure.
Whereas with a base defense, you know exactly where your turret's going to go. You know where you can rotate it around 3 or 4 points without being forced to reset it constantly. You reset when it's down, not resetting because the entire like fight plane has changed or shifted.
I think if we're mimicking like real situations, there's lots of cool real situations of like actiony movies where they're trying to defend something, right? Like, and it's a stationary defense point, and the offense, the team is trying to infiltrate and acquire said thing, or take over this point. I think it's a cool reenactment of a scenario.
And once again, I think it's for diversity. Like, we talk about hero diversity, and we want hero diversity, I like objective diversity because it breeds different solutions. Like you can say, okay, defense is stale and it sucks, but I think also a lot of it is the fact that we run away from these control point maps, that we don't get creative about how we actually play them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also say that a lot of the heroes that are very good at these defense and control point maps are unpopular heroes to play. Heroes like Zarya and Symmetra were very unpopular during closed beta. And they still probably, I would say, are on the unpopular side to play just in regular games. Although I do have to say, I think they've gotten better over the past with the opening week. But I still think they're on the low side of play. And I would like to, make sure that these points that actually do help some of the lower played heroes get played don't just fall off entirely. Like, we don't forget that they're there or relegate them to casual play.
Sure. I mean, I'm just concerned with having, like, and I agree with you that for diversity it's fine. I just think that for competitive viability, Hanamura and Anubis are just, like, they shouldn't even be considered. That you shouldn't even have to waste a ban on them. Is my point. Like, at this point, I don't think they're competitively viable.
Well, then,
but what if you're the one team that says it is competitively viable for us, and you don't go ban it? Like, that becomes your strength, essentially.
Yeah. I'm just saying, until I see that, I don't necessarily see. I haven't seen yet anyone be able to do that consistently. Like, and feel.
I believe it was Cloud9 versus Reunited in the last Overkill tournament.
And they picked,
it was actually one of,
or they picked Anubis.
Yeah, the last map they played was Anubis.
Was it on purpose?
It was on purpose. It got through pick bans.
So strange.
It's gonna keep evolving. It's gonna keep evolving. And as so I mean, this whole episode is about heroes and hero limits and stuff. And again, as hero metas change, I think map metas will change accordingly as well. They're both intertwined with each other, I believe. Something that I don't know if we've ever brought up in the past. I think maybe once. It's overall, I think, a silly idea, but it's worth still discussing. Is anything on hero bans at games? Has that ever been brought up? Has anybody ever discussed it?
I mean, like, people have talked about it. I just don't think there's enough heroes to ban. Like, 21 heroes, how many are taking away at that point? 6?
One each. No, just take one each.
But I mean, because there are so many heroes that are supposed direct counters, like, if I was a team and I could take out, let's say, I get to ban Hanzo, Widowmaker, and a Pharah, then I'm just going to build, like, I'm going to put in Bastions for days. Because I've essentially taken out the direct counter. Or if I get to take out McCree, then I'm just going to run an army of Tracers because you now do not have the ability to stop me.
Yeah.
Like, because there aren't enough counters to heroes, where 1 or 2 bans can completely throw a hero's strength out of the graph. I don't think we can afford hero bans right now.
Yeah.
So let's say that you have a 1 hero limit per game, and you can't run an army of Tracers, or an army of Winsons, or an army of Divas, whatever. Do you think that hero bans are more viable? Just one ban.
I think
per
it's
team.
more. I think it makes it more viable. I still don't think it makes it right.
I don't agree with the hero ban at all at this point in the game, because just personally, I'd like to see the spirit of being able to pull out any hero at any time remain in the game. But more from a more competitive standpoint, even if each team is only banning 1, when you're effectively banning like 50% of you can possibly ban like half of an entire class, or you take out 2 major players, like you take out both Lucy and not Lucy. I try to say Mercy and Lucio. When you take out Lucy, Mercy, and Lucio, it just changes the way that the game is played completely.
Yeah.
And I think results are going to get insanely wild as these random bans keep coming in and teams just don't know how to adjust. So I think the level of gameplay will drop. I think it'd be a clusterfuck.
That would be anarchy if Lucio and Mercy were banned.
It's so ridiculous.
And people suddenly had to play Symmetra and Zenyatta.
Oh,
it'd be cool,
God.
right?
I think people would give up and just play support Mei. Like,
yeah, they would stop. They'd play like Zarya. They would say, okay, Zarya's good enough for support.
Every team would run Mei, they would just run Mei, and then they would run just Soldier, and it was like, why are you running Soldier? Because the heals, bro. The heals, like that's literally
because
why.
it's better heals than
True, yeah.
Zenyatta.
Yeah.
Holy
As a
crap, it
random
is.
side point, I recently heard through a buddy that I guess the statistics are coming in that teams with Symmetra and Quick Play have the higher win rates than non-Symmetra teams.
Dude,
So
But we saw
you know,
that in closed beta. That's
We did.
that's not new information for us.
no, it's not.
Like-
But it's interesting that competitive play still shies away from Zarya or from Symmetra.
But I mean,
it's because
Symmetra,
I think it's because
that would
at
be
certain
so hard to
points-
play in like actual competitive. And I've seen competitive teams try. Like they used to do it for mid points on payload maps, because those are the ones that have the longest death run times. So between spawn and essentially where the payload is, those were the ones that were deemed to have the most value for her. And they tried, but the fact of the matter is her battle, like her actual ability to fight enemy heroes, is so low against skilled opponents because she doesn't have mobility and she has to be in this range. When the skills are higher, when people hit headshots reliably, she's just a sitting duck. Like
Yeah.
it's not even close. And unless her shield is like really strong and they're really like her best time competitively was the double tracer composition when she had 50 health on her shield and she would send tracers out and they'd have like what 250 health,
Yeah,
and that was or
ridiculous.
200.
It's
and that was just-
ridiculous.
That was ridiculous. So unless she's enabling these really hyper flankers, hyper mobility heroes to be like just completely out of whack, it's hard to justify her competitively. But
Yeah.
she's a great pug champion because she enables your team to like, she makes up for so many mistakes. She's like, oh, you went out and died? That's no problem. You spawn directly on point. You know, we lose you for 5 seconds, but I, playing this hero, have made up for your ability to make a mistake.
I believe in you.
I don't believe in you. I'm playing Symmetra.
Pretty
Guys,
much.
Chris, I'd love to do a whole episode where it's just like we go through every hero in the one episode, and each hero gets like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and we just like boom, 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 go. We have it like on a stopwatch, and we just discuss every hero and how like each person gives us like a strength and a weakness and a suggestion for improvement. I think that'd be a fun
That'd be-
episode.
That's actually a really good idea. Maybe we'll do that in actually, we might do that soon. Any closing thoughts, guys, before we leave? Anything we talked about? Anything we didn't bring up? Last chances.
Hero limits. I understand them. I don't like them.
In news, North
Caleb,
American
I like him. I
migration's
don't
happening.
understand him.
I mean, what does SoCal Esports even do, right?
Oh shit!
That was a great conversation.
Sorry, go ahead, Dylan.
Okay. For additional news for Overwatch, those of you that are watching the competitive community would actually find interesting, we're actually seeing a North American migration as Team Envious has moved former Team IDDQD over under the Envious flag, and they have moved into the team house in North Carolina. Now, this is big because this was essentially the second-ranked team in Europe, now fully migrating over into North America.
Not fully, though. They only have 3 of the 5, or 3 of the 6.
No, they have 5. All 5 of the European players.
I thought they had
And
4
they're
or 6.
joining the one reigning North American member from Team Envious.
Oh shit!
Is that a new development that more of the IDDQ people?
Yeah, so that was discussed. Gracious, that was discussed about a week ago. So they were talking about it during the cast this weekend for Agents Rising.
So they must have gotten over their internal grievances then, except for the one guy.
Yeah.
Huh.
So the one
That's
guy's
scary.
yeah.
That's scary.
So
They were so dominant in the beta.
but the thing that's going to be really interesting, and IDDQD did have a really good run. There was like about a month where they were undefeated. Now Cloud9 is running on a similar train. They're undefeated in 40 straight matches or something.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But they now run in direct LAN competition, and this will be quite possibly the first international FPS game where North America could be on the stronger side. In Counter-Strike, North America's been historically the whipping boy of between them and Europe. Europe has dominated the CSGO scene, still does. And really, except for Luminosity pulling out a major victory for Brazil, we haven't really seen anyone stop the Europeans from being the reigning powerhouse.
No, the only thing we've ever seen,
FPS.
The only thing we've ever seen is Sean Garces leading Cloud9 a couple years ago. That's about it.
Yeah, so very limited success for North America in FPSs, but it looks like the investment side is what could be pulling North America into the lead for what will be Overwatch. So Envious already has their team ready to go. We saw Liquid and Cloud9 both played this weekend. Liquid actually played considerably better against Cloud9 than most people gave them a chance to going into the finals. Cloud9, I think they themselves have looked at it as maybe Liquid knew that they weren't quite matched up when they were on that 5 Tracer comp. They're like, okay, we're going to cheese it and see if we can grab a win.
But didn't Liquid still pick up a member like pretty quick before the event?
If I remember correctly, yes.
Yeah, they picked up Dummy, I think. Was it Dummy?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Someone really quick, but yeah.
I mean, we all know how that messes with team synergy when you're swapping your roster out so frequently.
We did an episode on it. You can go ahead and talk about how to build teams. We can go it's somewhere in the 15 to 16 episode range. But go ahead and check that out.
Also, to add to this point, we still have teams in North America that have yet to pick up Overwatch rosters that we fully expect to. Like, I mean, I expect a TSM roster to materialize.
They're looking.
They posted,
soon.
yeah,
I
they
know
posted
they're
a
looking
post
for
about it.
Oh, I was going to announce it until later, but I am TSM's official new captain
and
coach and star player, sponsored by SoCal Esports, in addition to Coca-Cola. It's going to be lit.
Speaking of which,
SoCal Lives Matter.
Newest pickup.
You are what?
I am their newest pickup.
Yeah, I know. They picked him up on the side of the road. They just haven't had the heart to tell him that they thought he was
Daddy,
booted.
can we keep him? No, we gotta feed Bjergsen.
Wasn't there a league video about picking somebody up?
It was double if he was in the garbage. And then All right. We've devolved enough, guys. So let's go ahead. We're gonna end it out. Thank you guys for watching. Thank everyone for watching and listening every week. And we'll check you guys out next week. See you later.